Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special meeting of the Village Board of Trustees. Today is Wednesday, November 6, 2013, and I'd ask everyone to please stand for the pledge of the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the deputy clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Giordano.
Present.
Trustee Quigley.
Present.
Trustee Luisi.
Present.
Trustee Hayes.
Present.
Mayor Eklund.
I am present. We have 3 items on our agenda this evening. The first item is resolution number 1, a resolution for consideration of a public hearing and proposed local law for abolishing the position of village justice and acting village justice within the village of Tuckahoe, and further abolishing the village court of the village of Tuckahoe, and further amending the village code of the village of Tuckahoe to reflect such abolition. I will make this motion on this, and I'll now ask for a second.
Second.
And this is going to bring us to comments. And I just want to say the issue of court consolidation has been something that we've been analyzing for at least a year now. Eliminating a branch of government is something we all take very, very seriously. And it's because of this we've done a tremendous amount of research on this point. First off, I want to thank the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee for bringing this to our attention. I would say that if they didn't highlight this in their report to us last year, we probably would not have given it the analysis that we did, so I certainly want to thank them for that. I also want to thank our village attorney, John Cavallaro, who went way above his call of duty in doing research for us on this year. And also I want to thank our judge and his staff. I mean, they've kept a steady course over the past year while we've been discussing and debating this. I know we've met a few times on this as well. So at this point, I'd like to ask our village attorney if you could just kind of go through some of the bullet points
Sure.
to your recommendation on
Sure.
this matter.
Mayor, when I started the research into this issue, the research starts with Section 3-3012A of the New York State Village Law, and that law provides in relevant part that the office of village justice is continued in every village in which it is now established, but the Board of Trustees of any village may establish such office by resolution or local law, subject to permissive referendum, and the Board of Trustees of any village by resolution or local law, subject to permissive referendum, may abolish such office, but to take effect only upon the expiration of the then current term of such office, or establish the office of additional village justices. In connection with that section of the New York State Village Law, the New York State Attorney General has opined in more than one opinion that the legislature, the state legislature, has authorized a Board of Trustees of a village by resolution or local law, subject to a permissive referendum, to abolish the office of village justice, which is to take effect only upon the expiration of the current term of such office. And further, that upon the abolishing of the office of village justice, the town court would have jurisdiction over the village. And with that section of the village law in place, we've personally contacted the state controller's office, and they've published materials on the issue of court consolidation. The Office of Court Administration, which also has jurisdiction over the local village court, and also was very instrumental in contacting the town village of Ossining, which is a municipality in Westchester that has actually gone through a town village court consolidation. One thing that I think was important to point out to the mayor and the village board is that in speaking with the town attorney and the village attorney of the Ossining municipalities respectively, they had somewhat of a concurring view on the issues and somewhat of a differentiating view. In speaking with the village attorney of Ossining, and she had recently gone through a court consolidation, she had indicated, and this was put in an email to the mayor and the village board, that in fact created chaos in the village, that the town judges were not prepared to handle the additional caseload of the village, and although a third judge was added at the town court level, that chaos continues to persist. She also indicated that a situation arose, or situations have arisen, where the village was actually pitted against the town, and that the village is litigating against the town with respect to decisions that are being handed down by the town judges, and the village has gone so far as the highest special counsel to take those cases to the appellate term. It was further indicated that the town did not anticipate the needs of the village, and as such, the village has lost control of its court calendar. There was no conduit to the town for the effectiveness of the court, and although that a third judge was added, more calendar time was not added, so they're segregating issues by topic as opposed to calendars, and that's created more time expended by the local village prosecutor. There was a real issue in Ossining with respect to the town judges adjourning building code violations resulting in non-compliance, rather than keeping the violators on a short leash for compliance and removal of the violation. Their extended adjournments, and the compliance would not be forthcoming by the violators. And also the village local prosecutor was distanced from the enforcement staff, i.e. the building and police department enforcement offices. Ossining also experienced the situation where their revenue was not as highly as anticipated because fines were being reduced, cases were dismissed, and cases were also adjourned. And there was also a lack of control for compliance with the building department violations, when it was not so much the fine that they were after, but rather compliance and getting the situation remedied. In that particular municipality, it was indicated to me that the town judges were actually challenging the village tickets and building ordinances and are encouraging motions to dismiss by the defense bar. That's just an example of what occurred in a different municipality. I'm not saying that would happen in the village of Tuckahoe or the town of Eastchester, but it provided some helpful insight as to, I guess, what a worst-case scenario looks like, because the way it was explained to me, everything that could have gone wrong probably did go wrong with that respective municipality. In contacting the state comptroller's office and differentiating the allocation of the fines that was discussed with the Citizens Budget Advisories Committee, it was explained that the town, if there was a court consolidation, revenues from motor vehicle violations and moving violations would go to the town. Revenues from violations of the state building code would go to the town. Local building code violations would stay with the village, and parking fines would also stay with the village. Another interesting distinction between Ossining and the village was that they actually entered into an IMA where the village is reimbursing the town for certain court personnel. The town is reimbursing the village for certain prosecutorial services, and there was also rent between the two because the village acts as a landlord of the town facility that the town now rents out for the town court. There were other examples that actually I used for some of the legislation that was prepared, where one of the towns in upstate New York actually had gone ahead with the consolidation. I didn't get the opportunity to speak to them in time as to how that actually worked out. I tried to focus more on Westchester municipalities and what the state had to weigh in with respect to that. We also had met with our local Judge Fuller, as well as we had a meeting and also contacted the Office of Court Administration, and it was clarified for me that the allocation, as explained to me by the State Comptroller's Office, was the accurate allocation, and that's actually the allocation being used in the town village of Ossining as well. So with that said, there was local legislation prepared at the request of Trustee Louisi so that the board can review that, and then the resolution appears on tonight's agenda for consideration of that and whether a public hearing would be scheduled on the matter for more consideration on that local law.
Good. Thank you. And again, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you,
were
Mayor.
very thorough in this, which we appreciate because it's an important decision that we're making. I'd like to actually open this up for conversation amongst the board members, and we'll start with our deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Eklund. I'd like to just add to some of
your thoughts. Steve, I think that this process, in my company, we call it rationalize and exit. And what it means is you look at a certain sector of, in our case, business, or here it would be a branch of government, and you figure out whether or not the services rendered or the value that it's providing are worth the cost to the village that it's costing our villagers. And in business, it would be whether the profits being realized are worth the overhead that it costs. I think that it's a very healthy process. You know, at the end of the day, what we are here to do is to make sure that the village is receiving value for services provided and that it's covering the basic services that are needed. I think throughout this entire process, and I think really it comes from a couple of things. We talked about CBAC coming up with kind of this idea, which I think we're grateful to them for doing that. It also comes from Jeanette, who had done some research on the court and tried to look at, you know, and she was looking at other areas of our village government. And from that, we had a lot of research from John, Steve, who had reached out to other municipalities for information. And I think from there, we came to conclude that for the amount that we spend per, I would say if you look at it, reduce it to dollars and cents, it may be $20 per person in the village that we pay for the court, and perhaps if you look at per household, it's somewhere around $60 per person. I think that perhaps cheapens what the court is providing, which is really, I think, the ability to protect the rights of our citizens. And I think that what John had alluded to is there are cases that may exist where we would not be, or subject to not receiving the proper treatment with respect to interpretation of our laws, of our statutes, and so to me, that is a significant justification for the continued existence of the court. I do think that in this process there may be further room for Judge Fuller to perhaps and the board to work with each other to make sure that we've arrived at perhaps the best efficiency that we can within that department. But it's my feeling that in conclusion to a healthy process, that this our court should stay with our village and that there's significant value here.
Thank you. Trustee Quigley?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of comments. I agree very much with what both the mayor and Tom Giordano have been saying about the process. I look at it from a benefit versus burden perspective. We did, through some prompting by Jeanette and with some good work by our treasurer, John Pintos, a lot of number crunching as to what would be the actual realized savings in terms of the overhead and the cost of running the courts, paying for the salaries of the judges and the staff and all that. And it appeared that there would be some potential savings in terms of our budget if everything went well. And then after we looked at those numbers, we got the report from John Cavallaro about what was going on in Ossining, and we're thinking, well, a lot of it, opportunities for things not to go so well. So the benefit of the tax savings was being offset by the potential burden of just things not working out well in terms of who allocates what responsibilities, where the fines are going to be collected, who has control over what kind of charges, whether it should be reduced, what they're going to allow the defendants to plead to or to accept in terms of a verdict. And so the burden started to grow. And then just a couple little things, like in terms of the efficiency of our government. Right now, if there's a building matter, the building inspector walks down the hallway into the courtroom. If there's a police matter where there's an arraignment or an incarcerated prisoner, they come up the stairs from the police department. This now requires transportation over to Eastchester. It's not that far away, but just in terms of we have very small departments, they're very thinly staffed, and there would be an absence of people from these various departments for certain periods of time during the day. So that doesn't bode well for the efficient running of our Tuckahoe government. So the burden kept sort of growing and growing, and it was that sort of persuaded myself, and I think, as we discussed it among the board, that the benefits of keeping the court in the village are certainly better than any possible benefits we might have gotten by moving it out of Eastchester. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Luisi.
Thank you, Mayor. John, I'd like to thank you for the information that you provided us.
Thank you.
I also like to thank the Citizens Advisory Board for sort of lighting the fire, if you will. My comments are not so much about what the effects would be to the residents of the village. What I'm concerned about here tonight is I don't think we're giving this issue a fair shake. We spent quite a few months discussing plastic bags in this village, and here it is at the 11th hour, it seems, that we're going to spend one meeting talking about something which to me has a much more effect on the operation of the village, of the residents of the village. I'm not saying that I don't disagree or agree with my colleagues about the what would happen if we were to close down the village court. It's almost like what we listen to one municipality in Westchester County and things are not working out well for them, so that means it may not work out well for us. Again, this is something that I think is open to more discussion, and it's probably more of a reason why I think we should discuss it more. And again, not to beat this plastic bag issue over the head, but we had people from 3 different municipalities come in here and tell us, why we should do this. And, after much consideration by this board, we decided not to enact the plastic bag law. Why we're not given the same type of going over, if you will, for this issue, I don't know. That's my concern. Whether or not we should, I think we should just move forward and have the public hearing. Let's hear what the public has to say about this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeanette?
Thank you, Mayor. When this item was first brought to our attention, the first step of review that I wanted to dive into, of course, dealt with the overall finances and looking at the revenues and expenses specifically relating to the court system, as well as what impact, of course, it would have on our village residents. We then, as we said, took it a step further to review and research and found, of course, that there was one community within our local area that had gone through this consolidation, and as our village attorney had explained, it was the village and town of Ossining. So I had asked our village attorney to pick up the phone and call and really pound them to see how long has it been taking place, what has happened, what's been the pros, what's been the cons, and let's really see if the numbers that I had found online that showed they were projecting when they first made this decision really came to fruition after their first year. And as John very diligently did, he did his homework for us and found that it wasn't this dramatic overall savings, and in the end turned out to be what some may consider a detriment to both sides, the village and the town of Boston. And it is only the one example that we do have at this point in time. But weighing it all around, I mean, I'm concerned as well, just the time constraint that we have a deadline here where we have to move forward regardless, and move forward and schedule item number 2 or 3 on our agenda for this evening. With the limited information I do have, I mean, we're going to have to move forward at this point and make a decision. We have no choice.
Thank you.
And thank very much, thank our village attorney
Thank you.
for all of the research that he has done for us on our behalf. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, and I'll follow up. I will ask the public if they have any, or here tonight, any comments on this, but I am very comfortable that we have thoroughly researched this over a fairly significant period of time. I know that I've done my research on it. I believe in talking to the other board members that they independently have done their own research. I've had numerous meetings with our village attorney on this. I know I met with Judge Fuller. Jeanette, you were at that meeting? Yes. I had a luncheon with the mayor of the village of Ossining, which was quite a eye-opener to me, I will say that much, in having a conversation with him, listening to how things unfolded up there. And it's a road that you can't reverse. That's something that is quite interesting. You don't go ahead and give the village court of any village in New York to the town of that town who has controlling authority, and then 6 months later say, you know, that was a bad idea, let's go ahead and reverse that. It doesn't work that way. You can't really undo this. So it's an extremely important decision, like I said in the beginning, to go ahead and eliminate a branch of government is something that you have to give a lot of consideration to. So, you know, part of the thought process for me were some of the unknown costs that we can't really put a dollar amount to, and it was brought out how Trustee Quigley mentioned how, you know, it's very convenient for us just to go ahead and take our one-man building department and go ahead and have him kind of drop in and out of this courtroom versus having him actually have to leave the building and in essence not have a manned building department while he's up in the town every Tuesday possibly. As well as the police officers who are, I know it's not that far away, but it's just the fact that don't have a presence here, and to be able to kind of shift in and out of this courtroom on the day of court. So it's for some of those reasons, the limited financial impact. I think the positive financial impact that we're getting by a reduction in staffing in the court, which is something that came about when we started this process. We've reduced the deputy court or the administrative assistant in that department down to a part-time position. So we've made some financial efficiencies in the department already, and I'd like to see that department maybe secure some grant funding. I think there's other means of efficiencies and cost savings down the road too. So anyway, for that reason, I'm not in favor of moving the village court to the town of Eastchester. And at this point, I'd like to ask anyone from the public if they'd like to come on and weigh in on this.
Mayor, can I?
Yes, please. Mhm.
Ask one more question of our village attorney? The Ossining had went out to try and do a reversal. Am I correct so far? Once?
That's correct. The initial vote was not adopted, but apparently it was going to come up for reconsideration
Right.
in an effort to do a reversal. I don't know if that's come back on their legislative agenda to actually effectuate that, to bring back their village. But it was up for a vote. The first vote did not pass in the village of Ossining.
And it's only been 2 years, am I correct?
Yeah, the revisions that eliminated the village justice court in Ossining took effect on January 1, 2012.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Judge, did you want to weigh in on any of this at all tonight? Did you have any comments to make on this? You could come to the microphone. Oh, okay. All right, that's fine. With that, I'll ask the...
I'd like to comment, if you don't
Oh,
mind.
okay.
Mayor Steve, Board of Trustees. Thank you very much. Dave Scalzo, I'm Chair of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee. Just wanted to give a little brief history about how this topic really came up. As you know, we were charged with looking at the revenue and expenses of the village and coming up with ideas of ways to lower costs and lower the overall tax burden. And initially when we started, quite honestly, the village court, we had really no intentions of even looking at it, quite honestly. We thought it was a mandated branch of government, as you said, and it was actually the Board of Trustees that asked us to look at the court because of concerns about the overall cost and the efficiency and whether people were fully utilized there. And It was a very brief Google search, quite honestly, where we found out that the New York State Legislature had made it extremely easy for villages to consolidate their courts with the town. Because throughout the entire state of New York, what they found is that many village courts only work a few hours per month, and similarly, town courts only work a few hours a month. And so therefore, it's a natural place to consolidate government services. People are always talking about DPW, talking about police officers, talking about building departments. But what the state legislature has actually made the most easy to consolidate is actually the court system. And so what we're talking about is not eliminating the court system, but actually consolidating it to the town of Eastchester. We should also point out that when we spoke to the chief of police, he said he's very comfortable going to the town of Eastchester, and they do it regularly when our village justices are not available. So they're very comfortable going there. Obviously, we all know it's only a short distance away. When we looked at, I know a lot of you, we spent a lot of time talking about Ossining, and I just want to point out ways that it's different than Eastchester and Tuckahoe. And the biggest reason that it's different is, of course, is that the village of Ossining is much bigger than the town of Ossining. When you actually look at the number of tickets and the number of violations that go through each court system, the village of Ossining is much bigger than the town of Ossining. So you can imagine the town having to take on a much huger burden would naturally have many problems administratively, as you pointed out, because they don't know how to run that. The situation is not the same here in Eastchester and Tuckahoe. Eastchester is much bigger as far as the number of violations, number of tickets that go up there. So therefore, I think, kind of administratively it'd run a lot smoother. I think what disappoints me most, though, is that there hasn't been a single conversation with the town, with Supervisor Calavito, with the judges up there, talking about how can we make this work. It seems like much of the discussion is how can we maintain the status quo instead of how can we do something different and potentially better. Nevertheless, I think you guys, I think everyone has tried their best to give it, a good thought. And, we're under time pressure because of the election coming up and the need to consider this today. Otherwise, it can't be done because of an election for at least another year or so. And so I just wanted to point out a couple of those things. And I do think there is an opportunity here. I think we can revisit this in a year or so. And I think we should make a more concerted effort to reach out to the town of Eastchester instead of staying in our own little cocoon. We need to talk to them and ask them, how can we make it work? How can we do things differently? And there's other topics besides, obviously, the consolidation of the village court. So, thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll take a roll call, please.
Trustee Giordano.
Opposed.
Trustee Quigley.
Opposed.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
Opposed.
Mayor Eklund.
Opposed. With that, please note that the resolution has failed. And resolution number 2 is a resolution designating offices to be filled at the March 18th. Oh, did you want to come and speak now?
Well, yeah, that's right.
I only have 2 more resolutions. If you just wait till the end of it, we're going to be done here in 2 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Resolution number 2 is a resolution designating offices to be filled at the March 18th, 2014. Be it resolved, according to Section 15-104, Subchapter 3A of the New York State Election Law, there shall be nominated 2 nominees for the office of trustee. Said office to be held for a term of 2 years, beginning April 1, 2014, and 1 nominee for the office of village justice. Said office to be held for a term of 4 years, beginning April 1, 2014. Be it further resolved that elections for such office shall be on the 18th day of March, 2014, in the 7 election districts within the village of Tuckahoe. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Giordano.
In favor.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Resolution number 3 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to retain the services of John Meyer Consulting Engineers. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
This is for services relating to the Crescent Utility Underground project. So the cost of this is covered within that capital project.
Trustee Giordano.
Favor.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
Favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. And with that, before we adjourn, I'll ask the judge if you'd like to come on up and say a few words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations on deciding not to interfere with the court, to keep it going. I'm very much interested in that, not just because I'm the judge, because that obviously is an interest, and I certainly like my job, but I'm interested just in having, as you, Mr. Mayor, pointed out, the branch of government stay in Tuckahoe. And I also thought, by the way, it was very clear that Mr. Cavallero gave an excellent presentation, very well-reasoned and in accord with the facts. The court, as you know, has all the cases that come in for vehicle and traffic, all the cases that come in for criminal law. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of crime here, but when we do, the cases will always come to this court. And it's true of landlord-tenant, it's true of the building violations, true of small claims. And the court has been known throughout the state that this magistrate's court is the court that's closest to people. And people like to have their local court. They elect that court. As was pointed out very well by Mr. Cavallero, you have control of the calendar, so you can make sure that your building violations are given the time and effort, because they're first in the calendar. They're the only, and they're placed because they're the only building violations that we have. We don't have anybody else's building violations. The same is true for the criminal cases. It's true for all the cases there. So you, as you say, just have a person coming down the hall. You don't have to waste manpower. Now, I spoke with the chief about about going over to Eastchester, and he is a very cooperative person. He said he didn't have any problem with having to go over there when we weren't around, when Judge O'Toole and I were not around. But that's very rare. And we were talking about, I'd have to look at the statistics here, but I can't remember when they've done one. Maybe there was one a few months ago. It's very rare that they have to go over there. But if they did go over there, and I've sat over there as a judge, as an acting judge, it would not be anywhere near as convenient. In fact, people have talked about the court here, how you don't have to have the perp walk where people have to come through the court. If you have people that are incarcerated, they can come to the side, and it makes it much more orderly. That's the way they do it in the regular courts. So the police would be able to handle it just the way they do now, without any interruption, having to go over there and having to be there. And of course, the police are very good at keeping order in the court here. But I think that the important thing in keeping the court is not just the convenience, but also it's that the court gives a service to the people. And I don't think that it's really required that the court make money. Most governments don't make money. Maybe it'd be nice if they did, but I don't know that you can judge something by whether it makes money, it turns a profit. It's whether you do a service to the people. And you'll find that in Tuckahoe, as you went through some of these figures, I think, and it went back and forth, as it was mentioned, we were talking save here, save there, but the facts that I saw in talking with other judges in courts is that, and with the Office of Court Administration, talking with them as well, that we'd probably lose money doing this. And there could be a lot of ways to figure. You talk about people, extra time, overtime, going over to the other jurisdictions. You talk about not having the same convenience. You talk about town violations village violations being treated like town violations. And it's significant that in talking around, judges do get together too. We have these meetings in the various conferences in the Westchester County Magistrates Association, also statewide, that in Westchester, I don't know of any other place any other village you could talk to about this issue, because as far as I know, no one else has brought it up. I mean, that is to say, it's not something people want to do. I do know in this area, for instance, Tri-Bronxville, they wouldn't think of this. I've talked to the judges there, and the judges in Greenberg said that that's just not an issue. That people don't want to get rid of their courts. So that you did have the one example of Ossining in Westchester, and the mayor thought that was one of the biggest mistakes he made. I mean, to have done that, and as you say, it reached a point of no return. So I wanted to congratulate you on what you did. That's why I wanted to wait until we voted, rather than trying to advocate the position, simply say that in the past we've had a good tradition of courts. I worked as an acting judge for Judge Cunyon, an acting judge with Judge Nachman. And these are all judges that I would have been happy to, I lived there in this area with those judges when they were there, and it wasn't just because I wanted the position. I mean, I think it was good to have our own court here. And so I think that you can hold your heads high and say here as a board that you've looked at it very carefully, you've gotten a very erudite opinion here, and you decided to maintain and keep, I think, a very important branch of your government.
Thank you for your words, Your Honor. And if there is no other business tonight, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Till next time, have a very good evening, Tuckahoe.